Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. The tax holiday is coming to an end this weekend, and while some want it to be a permanent break, some others didn't think it didn't provide enough relief. We'll talk to two industry insiders for their take on the break, and there's nothing wrong with celebrating Valentine's Day, but what about the rest of the year? We'll get some Relationship 101 in our second half. I'm Amy Bell in for Michelle Elliott, and this is BC Today. Thank you so much for joining us on radio, TV, and live stream. You can call us now on our top story, should the tax holiday become permanent. Our number is 604-669-3733. You can also call 1-800-825-5950, pound 690 on your cell, or email us bctoday@cbc.ca. First, BC Premier David Eby is in Washington, D.C. now, along with his provincial counterparts, to argue against President Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum that could go as high as 50%. The premiers are also voicing their concern about more sweeping tariffs that could take effect next month. For more, we are joined by CBC Provincial Affairs reporter Katie DeRosa. Hi, Katie.
Hi, Amy.
So what were the premiers hoping for while in Washington?
Well, they were trying to get meetings with anyone who has Trump's ear. They met with Democratic and Republican lawmakers. They met with business leaders and labor leaders. But the big question mark going into yesterday morning was, would they be invited to the White House? And that meeting was only secured about an hour, 2 hours beforehand. And it wasn't with U.S. President Donald Trump. It was with two advisors, Sergio Gore, who's Trump's hiring manager, and Jim Blair, who's a deputy chief of staff. So, it's unclear whether those meetings actually change the dial and whether they will convince Trump to change his course. As he announced today, he's considering tariffs on every country in the world. I don't know if anything is going to change his mind on that, other than perhaps an impact to the U.S. economy down the road.
Right. And the premiers met, as you said, with Trump advisors. And while Premier David Eby said that the meeting was productive, a tweet after suggests otherwise. So what can you tell us about that?
That's right. Premier David Eby did a scrum right after his meeting at the White House. He said there were frank discussions, but he thought they went well. And he was told to take Trump at his word when he says that the tariffs really are about the border and about fentanyl. As we know, Eby had previously said that he thought that was a bit of a misnomer and that it was actually about making Canada a 51st state. Eby said in the meeting that Canada will not become the 51st state. And then shortly after, Jim Blair tweeted, to be clear, we never agreed that Canada would not be the 51st state. We only agreed to share Premier Eby's comments. So, a pretty tense exchange there. And Ravi Kahlon, who's the cabinet minister in charge of the trade committee, was asked just about minutes ago about this comment. And he said that the U.S. is turning former friends into foes. And that is a pattern they've been seeing with Trump. And it's hard to negotiate when that's the position that he's taking.
Very much so. Is there any sense that a meeting with President Trump himself could actually happen during this trip, or if not, perhaps in the near future?
Well, the premiers were told that it's a bit early because a lot of the key secretary positions have not yet been confirmed. But so they were kind of told that perhaps a meeting with Trump could be in the cards. But given, again, what we heard today, Trump slamming Canada for its low military spending,
right.
Claiming incorrectly that Canada is the lowest spender in NATO, that is really ratcheting up the tension. And so I think, it's also difficult because the federal Liberals are still searching for their leaders. So I think Trump can see that Canada's leadership is in a state of flux at the federal level. He once again called Justin Trudeau the governor of Canada. So that 51st state rhetoric is not going away. It's no longer a joke. And Trump claimed that we would have lower taxes and higher military security with the U.S. as our leader. So I think the premiers are in a position of exasperation of continuing to hear these threats on our sovereignty.
And we saw in that tweet from Jim Blair, he said that the President Trump should be taken at face value.
Exactly. So, the Premier David Eby tried to make it sound like face value meant, that the issue was really about fentanyl on the border. We saw Canada this week put in a fentanyl czar,
Yep.
former Mountie, Kevin Brousseau. But again, he keeps mentioning the 51st state. So, I think that is, it's like, which issue do you take more seriously? So, I think, we have a few more weeks until these tariffs take effect. And as we know, the tariffs on fentanyl and steel are proposed to be stacked on top of the broader tariff. So that could be 50% and very destructive to the steel industry and aluminum industry on both sides of the border.
Right, the tariffs on steel and aluminum. Katie, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an interesting time in politics, as always.
It's going to just get wilder, I think.
I think
Thanks,
so.
Amy.
We'll talk to you soon. That is
Thanks.
CBC's provincial affairs reporter, Katie DeRosa. It is 12:12, and this is BC Today. Canada's living former prime ministers have banded together to call on Canadians to celebrate Flag Day this Saturday. That's when the maple leaf turns 60. This is all in response to Donald Trump's taunts of tariffs and annexing Canada, as we heard, into becoming the 51st American state. That is a prospect former Prime Minister Kim Campbell had a pretty fiery retort to on the early edition this morning.
You have to consider the source. It is so stupid. And what I find interesting is that Donald Trump, who says he's such a good deal maker, thinks that a country that's larger than his country would agree to join the United States as a single state. Get serious. If Canadians ever decided, and they decided freely of their own free will that they would like to become part of the United States, well, we'd be 13 more states, 10 provinces and 3 territories, and that'd be 26 more senators. And, that might be a little bit more Canada than some Americans would want to have governing their country. So, be careful what you ask for, because you might find that it doesn't serve the purpose that you think is going to be served. But we are the best, and you don't need to play those silly games and talk about annexation, because Canada gives its best as a neighbor. We are a great trading partner. We sell our resources at very competitive prices to the Americans so we can have access to their market. It's a good deal. And if people don't like the deal we've got, let's negotiate another one. But we live up to the deal that we sign. So it's mind-boggling and it's stupid. But I think Canadians, as I say, we're slow to anger, but there are some things that really annoy us.
And this weekend, Canada's 2-month tax holiday comes to an end. In BC, it meant a break from 5% GST on things like snacks, books, and restaurant orders. The reviews have been mixed, but we do want to hear from you now. Did you take advantage of the tax holiday, and did it help ease costs? And did the tax holiday support businesses? Call us at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone. And you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining us now are 2 guests here in our Vancouver studio. Joining us is Mark von Schellwitz, Western Canada Vice President with Restaurants Canada. Welcome, Mark. Thanks for coming in today.
Pleasure to be here, Amy.
And we are joined via Zoom in Toronto by Ryan Mallough, Vice President of Communications for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. Hello, Ryan. Oh, Ryan, I think we might be having some trouble with your audio. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
And we can hear you, so there we go. We're all set. Mark, I'll start with you. What impact have you seen from the 2-month tax holiday?
Well, we predicted initially that this was going to have a 5 to 7% increase based on an economic formula that we've got based on price elasticity of demand, which means for every 1% increase in a price, you have a corresponding 1% decrease in demand. And what we've seen since is, Open Table came up with some data. So in BC, reservations were up 12%. We had a consumer price index survey, React survey of consumers that said there was about a 7% increase in sales in the restaurant industry. And just more recently, we've taken this Moneris data report and added our methodology to it. And from that, we can see a swing of about 7.6%. So right in line with what we're saying. But anecdotally, we've had members all over the map with this, depending on where they are, what sector. So there's a lot of factors. And one of the other big factors in this is you have to compare apples to apples. So when you're looking at total sales, you've got to take the 5% out of the equation from last year to this year to make sure you have an apples to apples comparison. So overall, I think it's been very good for consumers and certainly for the restaurant industry. And we've actually created another 6% increase in jobs during that period. That's 34,000 additional restaurant jobs since the GST holiday was implemented.
And those are no small numbers. Could that be correlated at all or inflated because of time of year? It was sort of the holiday season, New Year's, people were going out a bit more and celebrating at times.
Yeah, I mean, there's always going to be some other factors that are involved in this, but this is a year-over-year comparison, and it does compare that same time frame the year before in 2023.
And you've been calling on this break, this 2-month holiday, to be made permanent.
Absolutely. I mean, we've seen historically what it did when GST was first implemented about 34 years ago. It really hurt us in a number of different ways. And what we're asking for is food tax fairness. I mean, all food, whether it comes from a grocery store or a restaurant or even delivery, should be tax-free in our opinion. And, what it did is it created a really unlevel playing field with our closest competitor, grocery stores. Even though we're the most labor-intensive and contribute most to the economy, we're that sector of the food industry that creates the most jobs and activity. So it really was unfair from that perspective as well. And let's face it, it's a complicated regressive tax. I mean, it's very confusing for consumers, and it adds a lot of red tape for retailers who have to determine, okay, so for example, if you order less than 6 pastries, you don't have to pay the tax, but if it's more than 6 pastries, you do. Yes. And so there's a lot of complicated factors there too. So I think for simplicity and getting rid of the red tape and consumer confusion is another reason why it should be reduced. And I could go on.
Well, we'll get back to you in a minute. Yeah. We'll just have Ryan weigh in here. Brian, what have, in terms of impact, what have you seen from the tax holiday?
So when it comes from hearing from our members, we've heard that the tax holiday has been a bit of a miss for them. Over 2/3 say that they didn't really see their sales change much at all. Only 5% said that they saw an increase of over 2% year over year. Now, that is a little bit higher amongst our hospitality members, about 15% reported an increase to sales. But overall, for a lot of our members, it feels like it was a major headache in end of November, beginning of December to set things up for this for very little gain overall.
And do you think, if they could have streamlined that, you would have seen more gains? Is that where it all sort of went wrong? Just that initial trouble setting it up and the headache at that time of year?
I think it would have helped if we could have avoided the headache for sure. Just the amount of effort that went into going line by line through inventory, that would have been beneficial. But I think what we're hearing from a lot of members too, from their customer base, is it didn't really change spending habits, right? Like people who are shopping for the holiday season were going to buy what they buy. It is nice to get a discount on some of those items as a consumer, but it didn't result in them buying more than they otherwise would have bought.
All right. And Mark, how do you respond to those comments from Ryan?
Yeah, and anecdotally, we've had those similar conversations with members. And I guess, though, once you dig a little bit deeper and say, are you comparing your total sales compared to last year, or are you factoring out the 5% GST? So, of course, then you've got tips added onto the tax as well. And once you dig a little bit deeper into members, they'll say, well, actually, yeah, there is. And I think you can't argue with the real data, the Open Table data, the Moneris data, which is coming out, and we're going to be releasing that tomorrow, showing that 7.6% swing, which is 5.4% for full-service restaurants, 8.3% for quick service restaurants, and about 7.5% for pubs and other drinking establishments. So, and of course, the real verdict on this will come out at the end of February when we're going to get some new Stats Canada data, which I think will show what it is. But it's really a complicated issue. And of course, when you're talking about anecdotal information, there's so many other factors at play.
Fair enough. And we would love to have members of our audience join in the conversation. If they felt it was something they could take advantage of, if it helped ease cost, love to hear from business owners about their experience with this tax holiday, if they did find it onerous to get it set up, or if they sort of reap the benefits. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And of course, you can always email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. Now, Ryan, as we mentioned, part of the CFIB's complaint was the confusion, especially at the initial setting up of the exemptions, and they were too complicated. What is something that could be done perhaps to fix that process if this were to become something more permanent that would really benefit business owners?
Well, if we were to look at the holiday as it's imposed and making it permanent, the most beneficial thing to do would be to keep it going and not have it held up where everyone switches the POS system back and then has to switch it back over again. The challenge with this one was that it wasn't across all items. It was for restaurants, that made it a lot easier. But for a retailer, you were having to figure out which Lego was adult Lego and which Lego was for kids. If you sold gift baskets, what quantity of items in that gift basket had the holiday applied to it, determine whether or not the whole gift basket had it. Magazines, it was the percent that was dedicated to ads need to be figured out to determine whether it had it on it. So there was a lot of real nitty gritty kind of things to figure out at what is traditionally the busiest time of year for a lot of small businesses, especially on the retail side. So I think if you were looking at something bigger, broader, and permanent, there's a lot more receptiveness to that than this sort of gimmicky holiday.
And what would you like to see the government do perhaps instead to help support businesses? Ryan, I'll start with you.
Well, I think if we're looking at something immediate, the date that a lot of small business owners have circled on their calendar is April 1st. That's when the carbon tax is slated to go up. There's a reality that we are in the middle of an election cycle when that happens. There have been pledges, certainly from the Conservative opposition. We've seen Mark Carney, former Minister Freeland, come out and say what they would do if they win. But the reality is no one might be able to do anything. We might get hit with another increase before we're able to address it. So I think that first and foremost is something that needs to be addressed. Off of that, the next one is internal trade. With what's going on with the U.S. taking down internal trade barriers, a lot of really good comments. We've seen Premier Eby, Premier Ford in Ontario, really strong comments, but it's been 8 years since that agreement was signed. We need action now.
And Mark, I can see you nodding there when he's talking about that interprovincial trade. What else do you think the province could be doing to help businesses?
Yeah, totally agree with what Ryan said on the carbon tax and the other issues that on the interprovincial trade, we've been looking at that a lot too. And there's a lot of supply managed products. There's a lot of liquor. There's a lot of things that could be done there. But for us as well is restoring that food tax fairness. You know, it doesn't make any sense that you've got an industry that supplies so many jobs. I mean, for us, it takes about 13 employees to generate about $1 million in revenue.
Wow, yeah.
A grocery store only takes 5 employees to generate that same $1 million of revenue. So let's help the sector of the food industry that actually produces the most economic benefits for Canadians and jobs and tax revenue to the government and make sure that we're on that level playing field. So that is certainly a big push of ours, as well as the things that Ryan said. We're totally in agreement as well. I mean, carbon tax is certainly a big factor in the rising food prices that we've had over the last couple of years.
Sure. We do actually have a call I'd like to head out to Daniel from Lake Country. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for joining BC Today.
Hi, how's it going?
It's going great. So how did you feel about the tax holiday?
Oh, well, like I was telling the guy on the phone there, we found it was actually a good thing for us. There's a lot of things with the cost of everything going up that we purchased over the holidays for the children and the kids. And with the money saved, we were actually able to get a little more. So to us, it was a good thing. We spent a little more, I think. And as far as I'm concerned, the GST should be gone anyways. There's just a tax on our income already that we've been taxed on.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Daniel. And it is nice to hear those stories of people that were able to save money and were able to take advantage of it a little bit more. We have an email from Joanne, and Joanne writes, personally, we didn't go out of our way to buy more or eat out more to save 5%. If the government genuinely wanted to help Canadians, they would have reduced personal tax by 5%. So consumers had more money in their pockets without boosting the economy to take advantage of the tax. I worked in retail for BC Ferries, and this would have been an absolute nightmare for the job I did, which would have required a line-by-line exemption. It may have been easy for booze or restaurant meals, but where you sell a broad scope of goods, the work to do this was actually ridiculous. And Ryan, that does go towards the points you were making, that for many industries, it was just so onerous to have to do this, and especially ahead of the Christmas rush. One thing Daniel mentioned was, he would like to see further reduction in taxes. One thing, though, is PST is responsible to help fund public services. So how do we sort of work around that with any taxes that we reduce? Mark, I'll go to you for that first.
Well, it's interesting, the two provinces that don't have provincial sales tax on restaurant meals historically always do best in sales. So here in BC, we went through that debate about 15 years ago on HST, and the BC government at the time decided, and rightly so, that all food should be treated equally. So you can certainly see that estimate. But, anything that actually puts more disposable income into the consumer's hands certainly benefits our industry, because we're usually one of the first ones that are impacted when people cut back their spending, their discretionary spending goes down, so do our meals. And that's why 2024 was such a year for us. We had restaurant traffic go up, our operating costs were up 20%, and that led to a record number of bankruptcies in the industry last year here in BC, and even more so in other parts of the country.
And in terms of, it's still a factor, the sort of post-pandemic world that we live in. I know so many industries are still feeling that. Ryan, is that something that your members will still comment that they've never really returned to those post or pre-pandemic levels?
Yeah, very much so. And I think all of the uncertainty that is happening south of the border right now and the question marks around tariffs only heighten that. I mean, the reality is that in the best of times, a lot of small businesses across the country would be hard pressed to deal with something like that. The last 5 years happened. We are still having, I think, a third of our members are carrying an average of $65,000 in pandemic-related debt, let alone any other challenges that they've incurred. It is still very much a drag on the economy, and it's a drag on consumers too. We've seen for 18
Absolutely.
consecutive months, lack of consumer demand is a driving constraint.
And Mark, you obviously nodding that yes, this is still
Totally
having
agree.
a huge impact.
Totally agree. We have still not, on a per capita sales basis, got to those same levels that we had in 2019. So it's been a long way back, and restaurants have been struggling for literally the last 5 years.
We've got time for a couple more calls. Ben in Kamloops, how was your experience with the tax holiday?
Well, the tax holiday, I got to be honest, it had absolutely zero effect on our spending habits. Like, not even a bit. We bought some. I went, oh, that was a little cheaper than I thought it was going to be. That's it. I didn't spend more. I didn't go to places that had a tax holiday specifically. Like, we bought Christmas presents for kids. We just went, oh, that was a little bit less sometimes.
All right.
The biggest one for me as a small business owner is the carbon tax. So I have an electrical contracting business. I got 2 vans that I fill up, and I got a truck I fill up. So I fill up 6 tanks a week, and I'm well over $1,200 a week in fuel. And this carbon tax is killing me, because if we pass it on to the customer, you put out a quote that's slightly higher because now you have to put a fuel surcharge on it.
Right.
And they just say, sorry, it's too much.
All right. Well, thank you for that, Ben. And Patricia in Coquitlam, did you reap the benefits from the tax holiday at all?
Absolutely not.
No?
Nothing that they decreased had anything to do with us. Basically, it's a pretty easy solution. They can take some of the tax off the gas. That would help every person across Canada. Or they can just do away with the GST, since we already paid taxes on our money that we made and earned and put into RSP and are now spending.
All right. I don't think...
Under poverty level, it's a Canada's pension.
I appreciate that comment. Thank you for that, Patricia. Your phone's just cutting out there, so we'll have to say goodbye. But it seems perhaps overwhelmingly the wrong tax is being focused on, and that's where we would see more wider relief across all sectors. Not so much the GST, but it's the carbon tax that is having the biggest impact.
I would say it's a combination of taxes, and anything that is going to help disposable income is going to help the consumer spend more money in restaurants and in retail stores or across the economy. But in this particular case with the GST, it's the unlevel playing field and the tax fairness argument of it, and the confusion about it, and also punishing that part of the industry, of the food industry, that is contributing to job creation and most economic activity that we have a real problem with. And that was a mistake. And you can see it in the numbers. Our percentage of our overall purchasings of the food industry were about the same as the United States back in 1991. Theirs is now increased over 50%. Ours has dropped to 36%. So we as a share of the food industry are losing, as we call that, share of stomach because of these unfair policies that are treating competitors in the food industry differently and punishing those that are actually creating the most jobs. So we think this is a great opportunity when they introduce this tax holiday to ensure that Canadians are aware of that, and that let's simplify this GST and make sure that all food is treated equally.
And just about out of time, but Ryan, I want to give you one last chance. If not this tax holiday, what would you like to see the government do in terms of providing some relief across all sectors?
I think the three core things. One, you have to address the whole tax environment, the corporate side, the payroll tax side, the sales tax side. We need a holistic review and reductions in all those areas. Two, cutting through the red tape. Small business owners lose 32 days a year, $18 billion in the economy annually to dealing with red tape. We need to streamline our processes, simplify our rules, better government customer service. It's going to make things a lot easier for everybody and a lot less pain for small business owners.
I want to thank both of you for taking time with me and with our audience today. Very much appreciated. So thank you.
Pleasure to be here, Amy.
That was Mark von Schellwitz, is with Restaurant Canada's Vice President for Western Canada, and Ryan Mallough is a Vice President of Communications for the Canadian Federation of Independent Business. It is 12:32. It's time now for the CBC News with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. BC's coroner has scheduled an inquest for April 28th into the death of a UVic student who overdosed in a dorm room last year. The parents of 18-year-old Sydney McIntyre Starco have said campus security waited 9 minutes to administer naloxone and almost 12 minutes to start CPR. A woman is dead after a stabbing in Victoria last night. It happened in a downtown building on Quadra Street at 5:30. A man was arrested and remains in custody. And average real estate sales across the province were up more than 6% in January compared with the year before, but prices went down slightly. The BC Real Estate Association says an increase in both sales and listings may foreshadow a stronger year, with a caution that global uncertainties might trigger higher or lower interest rates from the Bank of Canada. The average residential price is just under $950,000. And now the forecast on the North Coast. Sunny this afternoon with a high of 1. Highs around -19 with periods of snow in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, sunny with a high of -11. Highs to -5 with sunshine in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, sunny with a high of -5 as well. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, increasing cloudiness this afternoon with a high of +3. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you, Rob. Got any big Valentine's Day plans tomorrow?
Still thinking about it.
Yeah, making those
Lots of time left,
those big
right?
plans.
Yes.
Okay, don't be one of those guys at Safeway at 11 p.m. buying some carnations.
Okay, thank you, Amy, for that
Hot tip for you.
Yeah,
Hot tip
thanks.
for you. Thank you, Rob. And there's lots more on the day's top stories on the afternoon shows in your region. In Metro Vancouver, here's what's coming up on the coast.
Hi there, it's Gloria Makurenko here, and I would love for you to join us for On the Coast this afternoon. Today, Ken Sim, the Mayor of Vancouver, and the Chief of the Vancouver Police, Adam Palmer, they are going to announce a new long-term public safety initiative for Vancouver. And this is supposed to target organized crime and public safety. So we'll hear more details on that and bring you some reaction. We'll also tell you about newly developed bamboo takeout containers. They are plastic-free and they don't have any forever chemicals involved. And we're going to meet the UBC student behind that project this afternoon. So join us between 3 and 6 for On the Coast.
Gloria, thank you. You can hear On the Coast on CBC Radio 1 in Metro Vancouver and, of course, anywhere on the CBC News app. And sure, Valentine's Day can be lovely, and there's nothing wrong with a chance to profess your love and set the stage for some romance. But can a box of chocolates or a bouquet of roses really help when it comes to long-term happiness in a relationship? We've talked about loneliness and the difficulties of dating on this show many times before, but what is the solution? We want to know, do you think we need to rethink Valentine's Day? What makes a relationship successful? And are you struggling to find that special someone? Call us at 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, pound 690 on your cell phone, and you can email us bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining us now is Robin Ducharme, the founder and CEO of Real Love Ready. Hi, Robin.
Hi, thank you for having me,
Thank
Amy.
you for coming in. So starting off, tell us what is Real Love Ready and how did it come to be?
So we are a company that's dedicated to learning. We bring in relationship experts from around the world to teach us relational skills, relational literacy. So we host a large summit in Vancouver every April. It's coming up 4th to the 6th. And I host a podcast every week where I interview relationship experts, therapists, psychologists, so that we can build our relationship skills.
I love it. You say relationship skills, and I'm thinking, I never learned those, or certainly never taught them. It's always this trial by error, and you get bad habits. Why do we not have a clearer sort of pathway to picking up those skills?
You know, this is something that we talk about. I mean, I'm in the relationship world, but we talk about this all the time. We don't have Relationship 101. We don't have classes in school that teach us very important skills on how to relate to one another.
Yeah.
You think about it, we learn from our parents, our caregivers, how, and a lot of us come from divorced families, right? So we're not getting great modeling. Our culture, it's all about roses and butterflies and you know, the fairy tale. But really, when it comes down to it, relationships can be challenging. And I think it'd be great if we could learn more skills, and we can.
Well, and, you know, Valentine's Day is tomorrow, and that's not what we're just here to talk about, obviously, but it's an important day for a lot of people. But there is so much pressure put on it, and it is expected to be this overwhelming, public display of love, and perhaps there'll be an engagement, perhaps there'll be some monumental trip to, I don't know, Paris or whatever. But what do we really need to be focusing on when it comes to love, when it comes to relationships?
I think what I'm reminded of with Valentine's Day is love, the center of what, you're right, it's a day that celebrates love. Sure. But really, I think what we could do is look at our relationships as a whole, not just partners. You know, it's like looking at your family relationships you have with your children, your friends, your colleagues. How can you build them and how can you make them stronger? So maybe it's a reminder for all of us to prioritize relationships, because they really are, I think, one of the most important things in our lives.
Absolutely. And I think, and I love that you mentioned, platonic love, because
Yes,
those
your
can
friendships.
be some of the greatest loves of our lives. And it isn't romantic, but they're still so important. And you still have those, open lines of communication and appreciation. What do people need to, sort of look at and perhaps focus on a bit more when it comes to having those successful relationships, whether it is romantic love or platonic love?
I think what it comes down to is that as a culture, we are quite isolated. We're isolating ourselves. A lot of us are working online. We're doing Zoom meetings all day, and then we're shutting everything off and not wanting to communicate or reach out. So really, it takes vulnerability. It takes more openness, curiosity, and effort. It takes a lot of effort. And that's the key.
That's key. And that is where a lot of people, I can tell you, falter.
Really?
It does. It does take a lot of effort, and it needs to be ongoing. It's not, it's easy in the beginning when it's fresh and you have a lot to talk about and it's exciting and you're in that haze. But, long term, how do you sort of maintain that? How do people continue relationships because they evolve and you grow as people and you face different obstacles and different experiences? How do we sort of keep these relationships, I don't want to say staying fresh, but staying connected?
I think, if we're going to be talking about, partnership relationships, one of the keys, and I said the word already, curiosity, is so important because I think we can get lost in thinking we know this person inside and out. We are changing, we're evolving as people all the time. And you can't assume you know everything about somebody, even if you've been together a long time. Yeah. So being curious, asking questions. How was your day? Tell me how you think about this. Because if you assume you know what that person's going to say, well, really, you're already starting off on the wrong. I just think we need to be way more interested in the person we're in front of.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Getting to know them.
Not be lazy.
On a regular basis. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that. I'm not like sending any alternative motives to anybody, but you do see that sometimes. There's a tiredness sometimes, and there is a bit of a laziness that can sneak up on you, and you suddenly realize you haven't put any effort into many little things. We would love to have people join our conversation because I know there are a lot of people out there that have mixed feelings about Valentine's Day that especially in Vancouver, struggle with finding that connection and maintaining that connection. So we would love to hear from you. You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. Maybe if you have just a Valentine's horror story we want to know. We've got an expert here. She can steer you in the right direction if you are ready for love and want to make that connection. As I said, we've had shows, this show as well, talking about the trials of dating in this day and age, but also, especially it seems in the Lower Mainland in Vancouver, we have this reputation for being quite closed off and people find it very lonely here. Why is that?
Well, I think, like I said, I think there has so much to do with online dating can be challenging, but really when it goes out, when I think about this, it's like, how are you operating in your day-to-day life? How are you walking around the world? Like, are you on your phone or are you engaged with the environment you're in? Like,
Right.
are you walking in the elevator and actually saying like, hello, good morning, how are you today? Right? It's easy. Like okay, I say it's easy. It may not be for a lot of people, but I think it's the little things.
Yeah.
Right? Are you being caring and kind in your interactions with people?
Yeah.
Are you smiling? Are you appearing open? Are you in a Starbucks line on your phone? Or are you actually maybe starting a conversation with the person behind you?
Yeah.
Why not?
Well, I mean, that's always been my theory. I remember they're teenagers now, but a few years ago, my youngest asked if I knew somebody, and I said, no, I'm just smiling at them as we pass by, and he said, well, that's a weird thing to do. And I was like,
Right?
okay, I don't think it is, but maybe we could talk about that further. But I think there has been that shift, especially for maybe younger generations that have grown up on their phones and are much more used to that sort of interaction, that they do struggle with just making that personal connection, which can go very far.
I think you make such a good point, Amy, in the fact that not like our children and us as adults,
Yeah.
like we have been, it's like we are so disconnected in such a connected world,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
Oh,
I
it
mean, we're
totally
on our
makes
phones,
sense.
but like, are we deeply connecting with each other?
Yeah.
So eye contact, being friendly, just starting conversations. These are little things, but I think they can make a big difference.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Touching on that sort of online, we know that we, all age groups really at this point, we all have sort of shifted online, but we also know too, during the pandemic was a very difficult time. So many people struggled with connection, struggled with feelings of loneliness. Are we still seeing a fallout from that? Did we sort of miss a chunk of our development, depending on your age, I suppose, of learning how to connect and interact, and now that's following them into their, later life where they're wanting to establish romantic relations?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the pandemic was it was just a few years ago, and it lasted what seemed like forever, even though, we were locked inside for a long time.
It did
and all
feel
that
like it, yeah.
isolation. There was a lot of division as well, even within households. So how could that not have caused a ripple effect? And, this is why at Real Love Ready, we're devoted to building relational literacy skills that we actually, all of us can learn and apply. So, if you think about learning a new sport, tennis, you're going to hire a coach, you're going to practice,
Right?
you're going to actually dedicate time to this, watch the YouTube videos, whatever you're going to do, and then you're going to practice. Yeah. And you can learn skills in being better in relationships. So.
Yes, and I think that's so important, the practice, because I would never, pick up a new sport or anything and expect that I'm just going to be great at it right out of the gates. But I think a lot of people feel that, when they meet the one, the heavens will open. They'll have, they'll be able to talk for hours by candlelight. They'll have this otherworldly connection, but that's not how it happens. You need to practice. You need to go through these steps somehow.
Oh, there's just, it's unfortunate that our society is still in the fairy tale land of how relationships are supposed to be. It's like this idea that that person's going to just appear. Yeah. Actually, it's not how it works. No. You have to create the relationships that you want.
Yeah, and create those opportunities to meet.
This isn't just like some happenstance or fate. Yeah. So I think we need to get beyond that and
You're bursting some bubbles here right now.
Sorry about that.
The people had some high hopes for tomorrow, I'm telling you right now.
I'm all about Valentine's Day and showing love and telling people I love them. But I think it should be happening all days of the year. Right. Really, not just one day.
No,
because it just glorifies one day, and it's just actually relationships are built. And it's the small things over like filling up the cup like all year round.
That's romance. It's not the big bouquet of flowers. It's
it is.
Picking up the dog poop in the backyard so you don't have to.
Yeah,
I said it. It's romantic. We do have one call from Maya in Parksville. Hi, Maya.
Hi, Amy. I wrote the poem on February 14th, 2017.
Oh, lovely.
This Valentine's Day in a little bit of with a different idea. May I read it to you?
Of course.
Okay. Bakes. 12 long-stemmed red baccarat roses to illustrate your passion. Chocolates and see-through lingerie for Valentines with certain expectations. The diamond on the ring, a promise of love eternal and within sight. The best day of your life. And if I say I do, through thick and thin, you'll claim that now you own me. What a cliche. Only those roses will never bear fruit. The way they harvest diamonds explains why those eternal promises get broken. And do I have to perform with a G-string now to pay for all those chocolates? Why can't you get it up last longer? Maybe you never tried to meet me. Maybe I'd prefer a special rock from the beach, a keepsake to rekindle fond memories. Maybe my favorite flowers are calendulas, and you have to make an effort to learn what they are. Maybe the string between my cheeks is rather irritating, and I'd prefer nice panties made of cotton. Maybe instead of chocolates, I'd like a chunk of brie, a sweet orange. This is the only me on the whole planet. Why should I fall for red roses? The ubiquitous diamond, pralines and negligees. Should you meet me, you'd learn that our hearts would have so much more to share.
Maya, that is lovely.
Thank you.
I'm with you.
I was typing it yesterday, and I thought I would like to share this with the world. Should I make a poster and hang it on a phone pole?
You know what? Share it far and wide, Maya. And yes, give me a hunk of brie any day. That's the way to my heart.
Cheese over chocolate. No, not for me. No, I love chocolate.
Fair enough. Yeah, baggy sweatpants, chunk of brie. Day is set. Thank you so much for that, Maya. I hope you do have a wonderful Valentine's Day and get exactly what you want. But she raises so many valid points in that Valentine's Day can be so cliched for so many, and there is an expectation that you're supposed to enjoy this, that you're supposed to like that. But what a gift it is to find somebody that recognizes you just want an orange sometimes. You don't want all these fancy
It's really
things.
so commercial, right? Valentine's Day is one of those holidays that's just it's all about the flowers you can buy and the chocolates you can buy from the stores, okay? But I love the fact that it's like, well, my favorite flowers are not roses, they're calendulas.
Yeah.
So it's like knowing the person that you're with, and actually that is the specialness, right? That you can, if you know that about the person you're with, or even your friend or your kids, it's like, this is what I know you're gonna love.
gonna like.
And it just shows that you know that person and you care, and it's the attention to detail. That's a demonstration of love.
Yeah, very much so. And that is something you can do every day of the week. We have a call in from Heather in Abbotsford. Hi, Heather.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for joining us. Do you have a racy poem or a comment about Valentine's Day?
Well, to be honest, I have, I don't know, maybe not the most popular take on Valentine's Day, but I'm divorced 14 years now, and I have tried the online dating thing back and forth, and I found that men were just, I don't know, looking for one thing in particular that I was not willing to necessarily do.
Fair enough.
And I find that, because you were touching on a couple of things, dating and, Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So dating, I'm turning 56 in a couple of weeks, and dating is very difficult, I think, at any age, but once you're over that big 50, it's really hard.
Yeah.
And then Valentine's Day is just, I don't know, it's just, I think it's a bit of a money grab for chocolate sellers and florists. It's not, I don't know, if you are in a loving, trusting relationship, then you don't need one day to, make your big gesture. You can make small gestures every day.
Absolutely. And I really thank you for sharing that, Heather. And Robin, we do hear that, especially from women, dating when you're older, finding a partner, perhaps, through a process of divorce or loss of a partner. It is very difficult. What advice would you have for somebody like Heather that is still wanting to find somebody, but feels that, you get to a certain age and it's more difficult, or, people are just perhaps wanting intimate relations and not wanting to build a fulsome relationship?
The first thing I would say is that, yes, dating is hard as we get older, right? It is. And we're also arriving with a heck of a lot more baggage as we're older. It's just guaranteed, okay? We're arriving with lots of baggage.
And that's just fine.
That's fine. I do think that online dating still is one of the top places where people are meeting their matches. Yep. So you have to go about it in a different way and learn skills about online dating. And so there's many dating coaches out there. Mm-hmm. I would also say, do people know around her, if she wants a partner, do they know that she's single and wanting to meet somebody?
Right.
Can she ask for introductions?
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like, maybe it's asking. You could ask your dentist, ask your lawyer, ask your colleague, ask, your brother's friend, I think when people know and you start talking about it, there's something about that, right? Mm-hmm. It's like you're voicing your want and your desire out to the universe. And I think you're going to start seeing some results. I hope so.
I hope so too. Email from Gail, and she writes, I've been with the same man since I was 14. I'm 61. It's a give and take, and don't worry about the small stuff, and also the ability to forgive when your special person says hurtful words or actions, or their lack of when they are sorry. Gail, thank you. That is such an important reminder for people, is there is a lot of give and take, and there has to be forgiveness for lots of things in relationships, but particularly when feelings get hurt. A lot of people maybe see that as a sign to walk away, and certainly if it's violence or abuse, that is not what we're referring to. But there's going to be conflict. It's human nature. How does somebody connect through that?
There is going to be conflict. We have Dr. John Gottman and Dr. Julie Gottman, their husband and wife team. They are like the godfather and godmother of relationships. They're coming to Vancouver in April to our summit, and they are going to be talking to us about conflict and the importance of conflict. But it's, I think a lot of us shy away from conflict, or maybe just like shove it under the rug. It's, no problem there.
We're scared
but actually,
of it. We don't want to deal with it.
No, because we don't know how to do it properly. We don't have the skills to actually fight right. And so it has to do with our body language. It has to do with giving each other grace, while you're in conflict, knowing you're on the same team. It's not me against you. There's a lot of different ways to navigate fighting so that it's constructive. It's not destructive.
Yeah. All very, very fair points. But yeah, learn how to fight is just as important as learning how to have a relationship. Now, you touched upon your summit, In Bloom, is it?
Yes, it's called In Bloom.
Right.
It's a love and relationship summit.
So tell us more about that. How I'm assuming that is just a wealth of opportunities of learning.
It really is. And the beautiful thing is we have a virtual aspect for people to tune in anywhere in the world. But I'm hoping that people from Vancouver will join us.
Yes.
So we have 3 days of learning, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's April 4th, 5th, 6th here in Vancouver at the waterfront. And we're bringing in the top experts from around the world to teach us. So this isn't just for partners.
No.
This is for how do you navigate all relationships, parental relationships with your friends. How can you actually build better, stronger relationships? So it's 3 days, and people walk away with new skills they can bring into their lives. And it's just, you feel amazing. You're just like, holy crap, I didn't know what I didn't know, but I'm going to take this into my life and make it better.
That sounds wonderful. And I'm assuming that there is a correlation that, if you're having these successful and connected platonic relationships, that those skills that you use will then make it easier for you to find a romantic one.
They're transferable.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
love a transferable skill.
A lot of this has to do with communicating in a kind, loving way, right? Boundary setting. I mean, we could do that with our family. We could do that with a lot of people in our lives, right?
We could.
And navigating conflict, like I said. And, and there's a lot. We've got a dating coach coming in from Damona Hoffman. She's on the Drew Barrymore show. She coaches Drew Barrymore, so she can give us some tips. Come on. So, I mean, we've got the top people coming to teach us. And I guarantee you'll walk away with something you can take into your lives.
I love that. And you know what? You mentioned Drew Barrymore, and I was thinking about it earlier. I love how she has been so open on her show and has really normalized. She's this beautiful, successful, powerful woman who has had no luck and hates dating. And I just love that she's so open about it and has really normalized that you can be all of those things and not finding a partner doesn't negate from that. You're still fabulous. There's just this one issue.
That's right. And that the great thing about Drew is that she's open and willing to learn. Yes. And Damona's always giving her relationship skills. So there you go. She's applying those, right? She wasn't great at dating, but she's getting better.
She is getting better. And she's got great relationships with everybody else. So I think that is definitely a success. Robin, could talk to you forever, but we're out of time. That was just wonderful. And whether you celebrate it or not, I hope you have a lovely Valentine's Day.
You too. Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
Thank you. Robin Ducharme is the founder and CEO of Real Love Ready. And that is our show. Thank you for calling in and joining the talk. You can always email us, bctoday@cbc.ca.